I think what becomes challenging for me is that when you talk about the women's strike, I had sort of preempted that it was not going to be a place where I could go, which was really sad. I mean, the Women's March was on Shabbat, and I brought my kids, and we stayed in the Eruv, and it was all complicated how everyone was navigating, and I had people's Metro cards in the hotel. Like, it was this whole operation, and it was deeply disappointing. And what becomes confusing is, am I being black and white by saying I can't go? Am I being just as bad as what I'm saying everyone else is doing? I think it's hard to know exactly what the line is and where to toe the line, and I think that conversation not on Twitter is probably the best way to move forward. It was interesting, though. There was one point where, for about a month, people kept coming over to me and they said, "Where's Jofa's statement?" And I said,
on the women's march?
The women's march on Linda Sarsour, like, what is Jofa doing? And I re-looked at our mission statement and our vision statement, and I thought, Hadassah is actually the one that's well suited for this, because Zionism, although many Orthodox people are Zionist, it's not in our mission statement. It's been the mission statement of many schools I've taught in or what have you. And then we were reading through an article in The Nation, and Linda Sarsour used the language of right-wing Zionists. And I read that as she was only talking about Zionists who are right-wing. And other people said she's saying that all Zionists are right-wing. And then I messaged her, which I'm sure many people do, and I never got a response. But it's even when you're trying to be crystal clear, which I think leaders of various movements are trying to be as clear as possible. There's still that even when we're trying to be nuanced, we're just not. I think that the tension is so heated that it's challenging.
Libby, when you explain to people that your vision of Zionism is exactly as you articulated it to us, is there a moment for them of, aha, okay, I don't oppose it now? I mean, how do people respond?
Well, it depends on the context, and it depends on on the room. And I think that's also what I was sort of sitting here listening to the co-panelists and thinking about your earlier question about how do you respond to, those kinds of vicious, vitriolic sort of attacks on Twitter and things like that. And I think my experience as a progressive Israeli has been mostly the other side of those kinds of attacks. So coming from extremely right-wing folks in the Jewish community and allies, and equally heightened and horrible to hear tweets and things like that. And I think we're a little bit conflating that with people's expression of their own points of views and then also legitimate disagreement. And for me, those things are really different, though it's easy to slide and sort of lump it all together. So I will sit and have a conversation with somebody who is non-Zionist, is anti-Zionist, defines their Zionism is in a completely different way than mine. The folks clapping around, American Jews moving to settlements, like, I would love to talk to you and understand more about what those applause were about. That's a very different point of view than my own about what's going to bring a brighter future to Israel, which is the cause that I've devoted my life to. And so, and the same is true for people who are supporting BDS. I will sit down, I want to hear about it. It may not be comfortable, and it's often extremely uncomfortable. It challenges the legacy of my family, who are founders of the State of Israel. It challenges all sorts of things that I've held dear for my whole life. But that's very different than somebody coming after me on Twitter and cursing at me and calling me all sorts of bad names for supporting the rights of all people living in Israel and territories under our control. And so, I want to draw those distinctions because I think we're talking about really different things. Twitter trolls and legitimate disagreement about an actual international issue and a Jewish issue and a Palestinian issue, which is the conflict, the occupation, and what's happening on the ground. So,
well, I think it's very important to respect intellectual discourse, to have uncomfortable discussions, to support freedom of speech. And I think this all circles back to, frankly, I don't see that in the application of intersectionality in a lot of movements that call themselves progressive today. I sense the responses, you're with us or against us on some very specific set of issues. And there isn't a lot of questioning. I think there's a great thing to get precise about what you mean about you're a feminist, you're a Zionist. But I think what unfortunately tends to come with that even more is, oh, you don't agree with my specific vision, get out. And we're not having the thoughtful debates that we need to. And unfortunately, I see the people who are the face of a lot of these movements taking that attitude, that you don't agree with this very specific vision, get out. Now, I'm not going to get out, but I think in talking about how you respond to Twitter versus how you respond to people you want to have a cup of coffee with and learn more about their views, there's also like the separate issue of how do you deal with larger national movements. And that's another discussion to figure out, do you draw a line what you do and don't feel comfortable supporting? I mean, for me, with the Women's March versus the International Women's Strike, you didn't have an organizer who was a convicted terrorist, and you didn't have anything explicitly in the charter. And you know what, I just didn't mind that. I mean, I would have preferred to have discussions with people at the Women's March who were, the chants like from the Ferguson to Palestine chants, or comparing the border walls, saying that they're all the same. I think that, forget about how you feel about Israel, that's just a wildly unnuanced picture of foreign policy. But loose chants, you don't expect a full coalition to all agree. People chanting certain things, people showing support for even BDS at the Women's March. I don't agree with it, but that was not an official part. That was not something the leaders fully endorsed. I think it's okay to have a conversation when it becomes a much more official part of the platform, and to dissent, be vocal by you're dissenting, but also stress what you support about their mission in maybe other capacities.